Let's introduce now other shapes, other meshes. We already work with a box and cylinder. Let's go with a sphere, which is another very simple mesh. I'm going to click F to get close to the mesh. And as you can see here, we have a very simple sphere. These are the default values. And of course, you can play with let's say the radius. Right now, it's 50, which is half meter. Let's put it in 200. So it could be 2 meters. And the next part I want to play is with the subdivisions. The number of subdivisions will tell how well or not this sphere is going to look. Let me present this example. Let's say that I accept this sphere as it is right now. Let's accept it. So as you can see, if I turn around, this sphere is looking very good. And now let's add another sphere. Let me add it to the side of this one, but I'm going to reduce the number of subdivisions to 8 to have the subdivisions that we have and accept. As you can see here, you will have, in terms of the look of the sphere, they are very similar. So it is about how you're going to play with the materials, or depending on what you want to do with your object, to have something that looks what you are looking for. And we're going to play with these objects later on when we add the materials. Let's add another sphere, and let's reduce these values to, let's say, 4, the number of subdivisions, and let's accept. So now you can see that the elements, because we have less subdivisions, are not as good as this one, and not even less good for this one. So it depends of what you want to, how you want to use this. The good thing about the new version of Unreal as well is that they work with the level of detail. So depending on how far or close you are to an object, they will add more details. And this is something that today is happening automatically. And I really have to say, I appreciate that change that Unreal did. Let's go with another shape. Let me move these 3 to this position. And now let's add I want to add to the cone first. As you see, a very simple structure. And like in the other cases, you can define the height. Let me move the height to 400. And let me move the radius to, I think, 300, which is 3 meters. So here you have your first cone. Let's accept it. So you can see here the number of subdivisions that we have and how the cone is looking. Even more, you can see the details here. If you want to have a more detailed cone, well, the only thing you got to do is, let's select the cone, and let me add the number of radial slices. Let's move this to 32. The height of the subdivision, because I don't want to do anything else with this cone, I am going to accept it here. And now you can see the small difference between this object or this mesh and this mesh that is here. So as I told you, it depends on the level of detail that you want to add for your scene. The other one is the arrow. The arrow is something that I don't use very much, but depending on the context or where you want to use it, you might be interested to use the arrows. For example, let's say that you want to model something very fast and you want anything that looks kind of a tree, like a pine tree. Maybe you can use something like this, but it's not necessarily the one that I use the most. I'm going to cancel. Here you have basically the same variables that you are going to play with. As soon as you started playing with these variables, you can see the differentiations that the mesh has with the rest of them. For example, you can say the head height, which is the top, and let's say that I want to move it to 200. So now you see that the top of this arrow is going to be bigger. And let's say that I want to create a tree, but this trunk is too long. Well, in that case, as you can imagine, you have the shaft height. In this case, I'm going to move it, let's say, to 100. Now you have something that looks more like a tree. For the case of the radial slices, it's the same thing as we found on the other meshes. So you can define, in particular for the cylinder and the cone, you can play it exactly the same way that is going to be here.